Hey guys, Garrett here, and today I want to talk about the equipment that you're going to need if you're building your own home. And I'm talking about if you're doing the vast majority of the work yourself. You're going to need a bunch of different things. So here are the top 7 things that I needed whenever I built my own house. I believe the first thing a person should have is probably just a decent truck, and mine's a 3/4 ton diesel truck, and it is 4-wheel drive. And I will be honest, I think 4-wheel drive is a must whenever you are doing your home. You're going to get stuck out there, and just having that 4-wheel drive is so nice. But regardless, just a truck with a bed that is capable of towing. You're also going to want a trailer, whether it's a tandem axle trailer like this is my car trailer, 18 feet long, or a single axle trailer. I have one of those as well, and I use both of them during the project. You're going to be moving just tons and tons of material from the store over to your job site. Of course, you can always have it delivered, and that's not a bad idea. I had some of mine delivered, but I made tons and tons of trips with this trailer and that truck, and I think they're indispensable. Definitely buy items. The next thing that I would definitely buy is some form of a tractor. And this is the tractor that I ended up with. I had another tractor, and it was actually a old 67 Case 580 CK backhoe, and it was just a big piece of junk. I was working on it about as much as I was using it, and it was just a flat out money pit. So I ended up finally giving up on it and getting this unit. I found it down in Arkansas. I'm in Kansas, and so I just rented a equipment trailer, took my truck, went down there and got it. Ended up buying this for 9,000 bucks. Has a nice big 6-foot bucket on the front of it, and then it's got a was it an 8-way blade on the back of it as well, which is super nice for grading out, you know, dirt or driveway or anything like that. But it does have the rollover protection, which my backhoe did not have, and it has a cab with heat, which is just friggin' wonderful. Another thing I found is that I was looking at skid steer at the same time, and I could get a better tractor than I could a skid steer, so I went ahead and just got the tractor. And another thing you definitely want is to look at the front bucket, make sure it is not totally bent up, because they can get real beat up over time, and this one is in fantastic shape. To go along with your tractor, definitely get a set of bucket forks. I got these off of Amazon. I provided a link down below in the description if you want to get a set of those, but being able to move pallets around is very important. The next thing you're going to need is probably some sort of an excavator, and this is my Bobcat 331 excavator. And I did not start my project with this. I ended up renting a John Deere 35D a bunch of times before I decided finally it's time to just buy the darn thing. I've got way too much money in rental fees. I had well over $3,000 in rental fees, and I ended up picking this up for $14,000, and I still had a ton of work to do. So I just did the math. It made sense to go ahead and buy this, and I did. And the intent, of course, afterwards was to sell it whenever I was done. But let's be honest, do you ever get done with a project? And for me, it's no. So I've definitely still been using this. And with that said, before my project, I'd never run an excavator of any type, or, you know, the ones with the joystick controls like this has. My old backhoe had 5 individual levers, and, you know, it was really old school. So I spent the first day or so just digging on my pond as well as my foundation with one of these units, and just to learn the darn thing. But regardless, you don't have to come into this knowing how to run every single piece of equipment. You'll learn. Also, not a bad idea to get an assortment of buckets. This one is 24 inches, and here I've got an 18-inch as well as a 12-inch. I actually only used the 12-inch as well as the 24-inch, which is on the excavator. But yeah, I mean, honestly, size the excavator to the job, and with that said, I dug my entire foundation with a mini excavator, and so yes, it can be done. It just takes a lot longer to do. But that's what I could afford, and I had the time to do it, and honestly, it was kind of enjoyable. Anytime I was digging, I'd be listening to a book at the exact same time. And I used my 3M Work Tunes earmuffs whenever I was doing this. They're great at muffling sound, and they are Bluetooth, so I could actually listen to books while I was doing it. And I can't tell you how many books I went through while I was either digging or just working on the house. But regardless, if you want a pair of those are also in the description. I also recommend some form of a dump truck. This is a 1972 Chevy C50 dump truck, and it's been just instrumental in doing everything I have. You know, I had to make this entire driveway, which actually extends a 1/4 mile long, and so I needed tons and tons of rock. And I could have had it trucked in, but I chose to get my own truck because I knew I was going to be getting rock as well as moving dirt. And so as you can see, the house over here is actually built up quite a bit, and that's not the natural terrain. I had to move all of that dirt, and so I was able to use my mini excavator to load directly into the dump truck, and then of course drive the dump truck around and dump exactly where I needed it to be. And I could have done it just with the tractor, but it would have taken so much more time. So having a dump truck is not a bad thing. This one, I probably have about 6,000 bucks into it, and I mean, I have rebuilt the engine, the brakes, brand new tires, lots of good wiring, all that kind of stuff. It's just a fantastic truck at this point, but I would say that would be a buy item, and then when you're done with your project, you can definitely sell it. A telehandler is definitely a piece of equipment that I could not have done without. And I would definitely call this one a rent. I actually had mine for 4 months, and it cost $9,000 to do it. And you're probably thinking, geez, you spend $9,000, do you really want to rent it for that much, or should you just buy it? The problem was, whenever I was looking at them, anything that was decent was $30,000 plus. It was going to be probably over that. So it made a lot more sense just to rent the thing. You're going to want to get the forks so that you can move material around. You're going to want to get the jib so that you can lift things even higher than the typical capabilities of the telehandler. The one that I had was a 9-foot jib, and it had a hook on the end of it, and I was able to set all of my trusses using that. And then also a platform. When I was doing it, I ended up having to make my own platform, and it was definitely not OSHA compliant or anything like that, but I checked around town and there were 0 platforms available. Every single one of them was out on job, so I just couldn't find one. The next piece of equipment would definitely be a skid steer, and I actually only rented that twice, and it was once to do the footings for my shop and once to do the footings for the deck at my house. And that's all I used it for. Everything else I was able to do with either my mini excavator or my tractor. And skid steer can definitely have advantages over both of those in certain situations just because it's very compact. But again, you use what you have, and those other pieces of equipment are what I had to use. So that's what I used. I will also say that I hired my concrete guy to actually smooth out all of my yard at the very end of the project. He was working on the pad that was sitting out front of my garage, so he already had his skid steer on site. So I just paid him an extra 500 bucks to go around and smooth everything out. And if I would have done that, I wouldn't have done nearly as good of a job. Those guys that use this stuff every single day, it's like artwork. I mean, they are so good at what they do. So it was worth every penny to do it. But regardless, whenever I was looking at getting equipment, a lot of times the skid steer was a lot more expensive than what an actual tractor would be. And for me, the tractor would be more useful. So I would call this one a rental item. The last thing would be like a plate compactor, something that you can get compaction with, whether it's again, a plate compactor or a jumping jack type compactor. You're going to be doing a lot of compaction whenever you are building your home. And so I would say the majority of it could be rented. I ended up with one because I found some people that were getting rid of one and they were just going to throw it away because the engine was bad. So they just gave it to me. I put a new engine in it and it works great. So I still have that and I'm probably going to sell it later on. I don't know that I'd recommend people just go buy those necessarily, but usually for 50, 60 bucks you can get one for the day that you actually need it. And just calculate how often you're going to need it and that tells you whether you need to buy it. Normally, at least from what I've seen, you could buy those used for around $500-600. And that's honestly all of the equipment that I think I needed. I mean, I needed a ton of tools and that sort of stuff. And honestly, the only other thing that I rented was a concrete vibrator, but I don't know if you'd call that equipment or if you'd call that tools. But regardless, I would rent that as well. Definitely do the math whenever you are doing all of this. Figure out how much you're going to actually be using it and decide, do you need to buy it? Would it make more sense to buy it? And if you buy it up front, you buy a decent quality piece, it's going to save you money over time because you're not going to lose the time when that piece of equipment is down. That old backhoe that I had cost me so much money and so much time that honestly, if I'd have known better, I would have bought a better piece of equipment. Or the piece that I showed you, my latest tractor. That thing has been awesome. And also, if you're going to be renting equipment, make sure that you are set up to use it as effectively as possible. You want as many jobs that you can use with it during the time that you have it. And I'm not going to lie to you, getting the equipment can be a real pain in the butt in the sense that once you have it, you feel obligated to use it. And you feel obligated to work longer and harder because you're paying for that equipment. Take, for example, that telehandler. I had that thing for 4 months. It cost me $9,000 over that 4 months, and I just always had that pressure behind me that I need to use this thing. I need to hurry up, finish up, so I can take that stupid thing back. And that's one of the nice things about buying equipment. You can do things a lot more at your leisure, and you don't have to stack projects right on top of each other. You'll be amazed at how tired you get as you build your house, and to have that nagging at the back of your mind that you need to get that piece of equipment back because you really can't afford to keep it is stressful. So again, things to think about, but honestly, the decision is up to you. Good luck with your project. It's an awesome thing once you get it done, and it's an accomplishment that no one can take away from you. Make sure to hit that like button down below as well as subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.